Hi, good evening. Well, it's been a long time, but weather's finally cleared. It's not terribly cold outside. So I figured I'd record a session, see where this takes us. I have a new telescope. I picked up a GSO 6-inch f4, and it's currently set up outside on the Ioptron EQ45 Pro mount. Still using the ASI 533 camera. And what I figure we'll do is play around with this. I did take an excellent image of the Orion's Nebula when I took it out for the first time. Unfortunately I didn't record that session as I was too busy setting up the scope and making sure that the everything was working in a setup correctly. Tonight I'm going to try and shoot for Orion's Horsehead Nebula. And it's just, I feel like I miss out on Orion every year because of the weather in Minnesota and the fact that when it starts getting warm enough and clear enough, it's usually very late in February or March before I have a chance to image it. Anyway, I don't know how this is going to work out. It's going to be kind of like a freestyle here. I figured I'd record something though. So we'll get started here, and I have the Raspberry Pi set up. Tonight's imaging, we're going to do everything solely on the Raspberry Pi. Depending on how it works out, I'm either going to do the internal guiding or I might try and set up PhD2. It all depends on how the evening goes and what I want to do. I have imaged the Horsehead Nebula before. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and pause this for now and do an alignment of the mount. And I want to check to see where we are with the field of view for this. So I'm going to just do a quick loop and we're going to see if our finder is still in line. It isn't. It's a little bit off. I think I bumped it during putting away the scope. Is it enough for me to worry about? No, I don't think so. I'm not going to worry about that much. Or maybe I can. Let's see. In order to fix this, what I need to do is I need to keep this looping. I'll need this, bring this over here, and I'll bring the phone back out there, and I'll move the finder accordingly. So let's go ahead and do that. I could show you how you can calibrate the finder with the main scope. Make this a little bit bigger so it'll be easier to see. And the tricky part of this whole process is holding the phone or making sure I could see the phone as I do this, adjusting it. And I have a way to do it, but it'll be a little bit. So let me go and do a quick alignment of the finder. At least you'll see how this works. Well, it took a little longer than I wanted it to, but it seemed to work pretty well. I also kind of adjusted the focus a little bit. So, we should have everything set up. And the next thing I want to do is go through the focusing. So, with that, I am going to go to the focuser. And what I typically do with focusing, what I like to do is I like to move it off the bright target. So I am just going to kind of go slightly off center and go to here. And Go to the focus. And let's see. This needs to be changed. As we're going through that scope, I want to do a 2x2 bin. I'm using this as the temperature sensor for now. Let's see if I could get a capture first to see what we're looking at. This does look okay. Now, I didn't make any dark frames on this. It's useful sometimes to make dark frames. I'm going to go and give this a shot. I'm going to record this. I want to record this point of 15,924 in case I need to go back to that. Now, this is a new focuser for me. It's a My Focuser Pro 2 that I recently built during the long winter. So let's give this a shot. Last time I ran this, it ran beautifully. So let's see what happens. Now that's a good sign. It's out of focus here. And there's the first passed point. Let it do its thing. It's starting to see the curve going down. And the curve's starting to come back up. And here's the preliminary, 15,920. So what it'll do is it'll come back around here and it should start, yeah, right here, 14, here's 13, and that's at 12. Okay, looks good. Everything looks okay. Let's see what it finally comes out to. It's interesting to watch this happen. Auto failed, moving back to initial mount point. Huh. I didn't see, okay. Let's just see what happens. I didn't like that, failure. Seems to work correctly. Let's see. In worst case, I'll do it manually. With this scope, the 6-inch f4, you really have nice spikes on bright stars, so you could even focus it using bright stars. It's interesting. Let's go down now and take a look at our targets, because I think it's dark enough. I think we've made it beyond the point of twilight. Just have to swing it around here. I'll just do here. Let's make it easy on us. Really? Oh, gosh, I don't remember what it is. It's IC something or other. No. Internet is our friend, right? So and I see now. 34. Let's get this out of here. Yeah, there we go. Get this out of here. Get this out of here. Should be centered in the telescope right now. Let's go ahead and do a alignment, solve and capture for that. I see it. It's right here. I believe that's... that's it. Now, what I want to do here is I'm cutting out some of this nebulosity from the other nebula up here. So I am going to recenter this. And click this and let's center it here. And let's go ahead and we're not going to slew the target. We're just going to do nothing and solve and capture. Yeah, this is what I want. I wanted this nebula here. This is going to be kind of a bright star, and it it will be bad. Now the question in my mind is I'm not sure if I should shoot this at 30-second or if I should shoot it at 60-second or 45. I guess I could try and do a 45 and see what it looks like here. What we want to do is turn on the cooler. I'm just going to go to a -10. The reason for that is if I'm not doing very long exposures, there's no real reason for me to go -20, even though the camera could do it. And right now, as you know, it's pretty cold out there, so I'm not going to truly worry about that. As this thing's coming up, I'm not going to check this box here. This box here enforces the temperature value. I just want to do a quick exposure of 30 seconds and take a look at what it looks like doing so. Now, we're not guiding this. 30 seconds shouldn't be a big deal with non-guided. And this will give me an idea of how this is going to look. And in the meantime, it should continue to cool down. Let's go over to our window here. And that's not too bad. Now, this is what I mean about that star and I wonder if I could get the focus a little bit better. Try that. And there's the Horsehead Nebula. Not that bad for a 30-second exposure. Maybe this is what I'm going to have to do, is just collect 30-second exposures. Let me try. I don't know. Let's go over to the focus. And this is always going to be kind of challenging. Let's go to I'll go to a 15-second exposure, and I'm just going to do a quick shot here. We're on a 2x2 bind. I'm going to change that to let's change to 1x1. And what I'm going to do is I am going to see if I can make this any better. So I'm going to change this to 924. Oh, up in there. Oh, I changed the... is it looping? I'm going to try and change this to a 900. And I'm going to take another picture. Now I have to be careful because we don't want to do the autofocusing routine. I want to see if this improves this line here to see how well that works or it doesn't work. Looks a little bit better. You know, I'm just going to go with that. I could fool around with it a little bit further, but I'm not going to. That means when I go here, I'm not going to turn on the focusing limits because I don't want it to automatic focus, but I do want it to start and guiding. Now, I haven't tested the guiding on this either. So let's go here through the auto guider sequence. Turn off this. And this is the internal guider. We're guiding through the mount. And guide scope, everything looks good. We're going to turn on 2x2 binding. And let's try and start the process here. See how it is. I also want to try and do PhD 2 and see how that works tonight. It depends. I want to really capture this image, and I have a limited time to do it. So if guiding is kind of crappy to begin with, I probably will just go with it because I went that with this with Orion's Nebula last image I did, and even though guiding was all over the place, it really worked well regardless. So the question is, I think I'm going to split the time. I'm going to go 45 seconds. That's kind of a... It should reduce that... Now that star is really going to be bright. I'll try taking a 45-second exposure and seeing how that works after this gets done. And then the boring stuff will happen where I'm going to just start imaging a bunch of images. So we'll see how that works. We're doing deck drifting. Everything looks okay there. Deck swap enabled. We started yet. here. Looks like we've started. Not too bad. Let's hope it stays that way. Because it definitely looks like it's doing a little bit better than it did last time. So, all right, let's go back here and start setting up our sequence. I wanted to try a 45-second exposure just to see what it looks like. So it's worth the time. So let's run. Set up our 30 seconds. We're going to start with, let's say, 100 shots. I see 434 for the name, prefix name. No filters, no delays, offset. We'll leave this. I'm going to increase this just a little bit. And this looks good. Let's go back to we're at -10. That looks good. I will turn this on now. And everything looks like it should. Let's go ahead and add the sequence. And let's go ahead and start. While that's starting, and it's starting the exposure, I believe I have everything set up for... what is this here? Strange. Shouldn't be. Oh, look at how it went up and went down, but it's okay now. Like I said, I would like to try PhD 2, and that'll be after I do these exposures. All right, dithering should already be enabled. Let's see if I could remember where to find that dithering. Dither right in front of me here. Yep, dither 3 pixels. That should be fine. We'll leave this run, and that's looking good. This is kind of scary over here, but hopefully it'll get back over where it should be. Now it's dithering. One thing about these short exposures and dithering and guiding, it's always going to be moving around. I found that there's not a lot of time for settling, but we'll see. Okay, it looks good. All right, so I'm going to pause this, and if anything should happen, if I run into trouble, like always, I'll bring you aboard and we'll see what's going on. I know it's been kind of boring. I've been mumbling, but it might give you some insight on a typical evening of imaging for Ekos. But I think once everything is set up and started, it should go pretty smoothly. All right, I thought I'd check back in with you guys and let you know how everything's progressing. Everything's running fine. We're at almost 80%. In other words, 80 images out of 100. Guiding's been fine. I haven't had any issues at all, and other than, hey, satellite. Occasional satellite that goes over and ruins an image. So we'll keep an eye on this and see what happens, and I'm going to try and at least get 150 images out of this run. I wish it was more, but Orion is kind of getting further and further west and more into light polluted areas and hazy skies, let's call it. I'll go ahead and when I publish this video session, I'll go ahead and display the final images, at least at some. They're probably not overly processed, but just the initial processed image, and see what we got. There's still a lot to do, though. Once I get the 100 images, I'm going to try and go for a little bit more. Then I still have to do the calibration frames other than the light frame. Or excuse me, the flat frame. I'll do that tomorrow morning. So that's it. Just thought I'd give you a status. Everything's looking good. And we're continuing onward here. All right, I've completed the additional 50 images, and it's getting too far into the horizon to continue doing any more imaging. All right, next thing I'm going to do is let's bring this up. Yeah, this is right on the part of losing it. I'm gonna go back up. Let's go. I'm gonna just bring the telescope. I didn't realize the Big Dipper was almost overhead. I'm gonna take this and bring the telescope up over here, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some dark frames, and I don't need it sitting where it's at right now. All right, so let me go and do the dark frames. I'll go ahead and get the sequence started for that. I'm going to do 20-30-second dark frame should be adequate for what we want to do. And I'm going to do dark frame now. I'm going to pop out of here and go ahead and put the cap on the telescope so we could do the dark frames. All right, the cap is on and we've set it up. Let's add the sequence. Actually, I'm going to go I'll bump this up a little bit more. Should be more than enough. And add the sequence and start the sequence. So we'll let that continue on, and anything to report back. Then the next thing I'll do is I'll create the bias, and we'll go ahead and skip the flat files. I'll do that tomorrow morning. All right, we're back again. We finished that sequence. Now let's go ahead and do a bias sequence. And for this, we changed the exposure time to the fastest that we could expose the camera to, which happens to be 0.000032, and I normally do a count of 30 on the bias frames. We'll keep it covered since bias needs to have the optics covered and dark. So let's go ahead and add that sequence and start that image sequence. Now this will go, of course, really fast, as you're just going through and creating the image and storing the images. And I think that's about it. Thank you for joining me tonight. I hope you found it was interesting. Again, it's been the first night I've had to take out in quite a long time. It's been a very long winter. I got out March 7th, didn't record it. I'll share the picture I took of Orion's Nebula on the end of this one. And then tonight is the next opportunity, and weather has just been terrible. Usually springtime in Minnesota is lots of rain and clouds, so we'll see. Anyway, have a good evening, clear skies, and take care, everyone.